everyone, I'm Varnika Gupta, and this video is a part of the I Am the Future series. In this series, we are speaking with various business leaders at Infosys, and today I have with me Rachael Zavodnyik, AVP and Assistant General Counsel, Head of Legal APAC at Infosys. Hello, and a very warm welcome to you, Rachel.
Hi, Varnika. Thank you for your introduction.
Let's begin by knowing you a bit more. How would you describe yourself?
Let me describe myself first in the context that my son might describe me, or somebody who knows me. Lawyer, mother, child chauffeur, general dog's body, and extreme overlord. My son calls me extreme overlord. Um, I think in terms of the adjectives that I would use to describe myself, I think I'm driven, focused, intense, and practical, but I have a sense of fun and humor. From an early age, I was a logical individual with an innate sense of what was right and what's wrong. And I love arguing. I love talking and I love arguing. And I guess being a lawyer was my destiny, given that description. Although for a while, as you know, Vanika, I thought I was going to be someone else. I would choose a different path.
What was that different path that you thought you will choose? And intense and fun. We'll explore that a little later. But what was that different path you thought you will be choosing?
So for the longest time, I played music as a child and a young person, and I honestly thought I was going to become a professional musician and teacher. That's what I thought I would become.
How did this love for music develop?
My mother was a musician and a teacher,
Oh,
and she was a musician before she was a teacher. And it was mandatory in our home. There was no choice about whether or not we studied music or whether we participated in music. It was not an option. So there was music when we were very young. We were taken to Suzuki keyboard school. We had to sing. We were singing constantly at home, and the instruments were put in our hands basically from the age of 3. So I was playing violin from a very young age, and in a number of different programs. And my sister also tried. Violin was just not her thing. She was actually a wind instrument player. She was a bassoonist. So it was ingrained into us from a very early age.
interesting. So tell us more about your childhood, Rachel. What was it like? A very supportive, and from what we can see that it was a very stimulating environment. But were you encouraged to ask questions? Pursue some dreams passionately, participate in conversations. How was it like?
I grew up with both of my parents at home and with the extended family. My maternal grandmother lived with us. I was the child of 2 immigrants, and my parents were just omnipresent. They were constantly around. They were constantly involving us in everything. And I think having the extended family really helped me and my sister grow and understand that there was something outside of that, typical nuclear family unit, that you interacted with everybody. My sister and I went everywhere with my parents. We went to dinner. We were never excluded. We were in restaurants. We were never excluded at any gathering at home. We were included always in the conversation. We were asked to perform when we were playing music regularly as small children, to perform to the crowd, to get over that fear of failure in front of other people. And participating was all part of the home culture. And, I know from my family, it's no different in any other part of my extended family. My cousins, my first cousins, my aunts and uncles, we were always included wherever we went. We traveled the world with my parents as well. My mum and my dad were my heroes, to be honest. So my mother was larger than life. And so my father, to a certain extent, was as well. They were both very interesting people. They had very interesting life experiences. And I guess I learned to listen to what they had to say to me at a young age too. And I retained a lot of the stories, a lot of who they were. And I found them to be quite inspirational in my journey. But that's not to say I didn't meet interesting people along the way. Quite a lot of prominent Sydney-based musicians came in and out of our doors, and same with Sydney business people. There were constantly judges, lawyers, business people from all walks of life. But really, my parents my parents were my exemplars and my heroes and my anchors.
So, Rachel, when was it when you decided that you would want to study law and you would want to become a lawyer?
I think really that realization came to me and my interest started peaking at around 16. And at this time in my life, in Australia, it's typical for students in year 10 at that age, 16, to do 2 weeks of work experience, to see what different jobs are about and to see what it's like to be out in the workplace. I did a week with a violin maker. It was great. It was nice. It was great to get more intimate with my instrument. But I needed another week of work experience. And my mother knew a barrister at the time who was a QC, Queen's Counsel. And I went and attended his chambers for a week, and he dragged me to court. He dragged me to conferences. I read case notes. I read advices. He talked to me about my opinion. He asked me what I thought. And I loved it. I was fascinated and it was stimulating, and I was hooked from that point.
You still play violin? Do you still play violin?
Not as much as I used to until my son was about 12. He was playing, and I would practice with him. But I've in recent years, I think work and career has taken an overdrive, and I'm pursuing other interests and loves. But I still love listening to music. We still go to opera occasionally and concerts, classical music. I like classical music. I like all music. It's not limited just to classical music. And I think that was really what my mother wanted us to get out of it. She wanted a passion and a love for arts and culture. And I certainly have that. And I've given it to my child, which is great.
That's so great, Rachel. One thing that keeps that stands out in your answers is that you were, if I can say, privileged and lucky that you always had people around you who were giving you an opportunity to, who were listening to your opinions, who were giving you an opportunity to have those important conversations. Do you feel the same way?
I think I grew up in really different circumstances to my parents, and I think I was privileged in that context, but I didn't grow up in a very wealthy home or anything like that. My parents were both working. They worked very hard. My grandmother, to a large extent, was our primary carer when we were younger and, preteen, and would be there at home. But my parents were always around. They were available. They were definitely encouraging. They were definitely supporting. They were driving us here, there, everywhere. They encouraged our passions. I not only played music, I played field hockey all the way through to university as well. My father would take me to the games and to my trainings early in the morning, so would my mum. And they did the same for my sister. My sister played basketball, she went sailing, same deal. And she had music lessons too, and she played in external orchestras and things like that as well. So yes, my parents were very supportive, and there were people around who they introduced me to I guess, further my interest. They encouraged my questioning. They constantly forced me to question what I liked, what I didn't like, have an opinion. But I never sat silent at the table. There was always a discourse. There was always a discussion. So that was something, we might have had loud discussions. We were very loud people. I remember when I was dating my son's father, he would come to the house and wonder what the noise was before he stepped through the door. And we were just talking. Well, we thought we were just talking. It sounded like shouting from outside. But there was always this openness, this constant passion for discussion and discourse. So you couldn't really have a wrong answer. There are no wrong answers when you're giving your opinion. But sometimes you have to admit that there are other opinions and that you can go away and investigate further, and perhaps saying sorry is not the worst thing you can do in the world, right? And I take that into my everyday work life. I don't have a problem with people correcting me. I don't have a problem with people correcting my work. I don't have a problem with someone having a different opinion to me. I'm entitled to my opinion, so are they. We can agree to disagree, but we can still move on and get on with it. So, they're all important lessons, I think, in any kind of role that you're in a professional sense, as well as in a home context.
Rachel, I was reading a blog post that you'd written on LinkedIn also, where you said that you had to examine and redefine your leadership style to manage international teams at Infosys. So, so how could you tell us some of the challenges you faced, and what made you reflect and think that, oh, I need to probably step back and do this, and how did your inquisitive nature and this diverse, colorful upbringing played a role in making the leader you are today?
By now, our listeners might have worked out that I'm a pretty emotional kind of person. And I think one of the things that I had to do coming into this role was learn how to temper that. So it's great to have emotional awareness and understand who you are and be gregarious and outgoing and be really, really emotional. But it's not good to be that in a meeting when you're meeting with external people, when you're even trying to manage people internally. You can't color your experience, their experience of you with your own experiences and your emotions. It's not appropriate. And it's very important to sometimes pack some of that emotion away. However, it is a very useful thing to be empathetic and to be aware of other people's emotions and where they sit. A lot of our communication is not based on what just comes out of your mouth. That's why, reading something on a paper or just listening, you miss out a lot of context. So I think having that awareness of body language, having awareness of how people are reacting to what you're saying, even if they don't physically react a lot, there are some things, there are inflections in their voice. They might tilt their head, they might change their attitude, they might do a 180 and walk in the other direction from the opinion that they had 20 seconds ago. You've got to be able to read those signs. So my innate emotional being is an advantage I find to how I run my team.
When you were saying that how you're emotional and it's both a good thing, and sometimes you have to control that part a bit, dial it down. When we generally speak with a lot of women professionals, they struggle with this emotion. They say that it is often seen as a weakness when they are in a workspace. But did you ever see it that way, that it could be my weakness and hence I need to dial it down, or was it just because you thought it's I should be able to strike a balance?
You know what? That's a really good question. Yes, I have seen it as a weakness. Bursting into tears in front of somebody who you're having a fight with is not a rational way to deal with an issue at work. So yes, it is a weakness, but you can use it as a strength. And I feel that from my experiences at work, and I've had lots of different experiences, that I've learned from my natural, social, and emotional nature to actually control that and take it in a different direction that actually works for me. It doesn't work for everyone. Organization tips don't necessarily work the same way for everybody. But if you have some innate sense of discipline, and I think the years of music actually taught me that self-discipline. You've got to practice, you've got to write your list, you've got to focus on certain things to get to the next step. Those sort of things have helped me in controlling that emotional behavior. And I learned earlier on as well not to take things so personally, because I would be the girl who came home in floods of tears and had to sit in the bath with a glass of wine to calm down. I was that girl. I understand that. I totally get it. I've had the ranting and raving at my ex-partner. I never want to go back there again. I hate everything. I hate everyone. But you know what? At the end of the day, if you're doing what you love, you can look past those aggravations. You can actually find the steps through the bath with the glass of wine, the candle, the 20 minutes of meditation the minute you walk through the door, telling the kids, don't come near me until I've collected myself for 30 minutes. You can have those strategies to get through the evening, to bypass and overpass or overcome the really stressful situations and get to the next day.
When you were talking about, bath and the wine, I remember whenever I used to be very upset and, crying, come back, my mom was like, eat some chocolate, watch some TV, you will feel better. Then we'll talk. Once you've watched TV and ate a full chocolate, then come back, then we'll talk. You will be feeling a completely different set of emotions then.
Yep, so does the bath and a glass of wine.
I'm sure I'll try that. Okay, Rachel, but do you remember any moment when you felt that you were a little underappreciated, or probably the same kind of probably not underappreciated, or you missed out on an opportunity because of your gender? And do you remember how did you react to it back then?
I grew up in a very female-dominated house. So
Hmm.
we lived with my mother, there was my sister, there was a female dog, and then there was my poor father. So you know what? I don't think I recall ever feeling cheated because I was a woman in opportunity. In terms of remuneration, that's a different story. I
Hmm.
have had that experience, but I never thought and I was never brought up to think that because I'm a woman, I'm different and I don't deserve an opportunity. I deserve everything anyone else does. I'm a person, first and foremost. And, I think the support that I felt from my family came from a very young age. My father taught me so many things. He never just left child raising to my mum and my grandma. He was present. He taught me how to change a tire. We built a radio together. We pulled apart radios. He showed me how to pull a car apart. He showed me how to change oil in my car. He taught my sister how to drive. It was certainly a hands-on experience with my father, and he didn't make any differences. And I noticed that very much when I moved back in with my parents after I left my ex-partner with my son. And my father was everything to my son. He and I went bushwalking with my son. It was not different. It was just reliving my childhood, actually. And it was the same at the table. Everything we ate, my child ate. Everything I tried, my child tried. And, it meant that I'm growing a confident child. I think I'm quite a confident person in many respects. I'm growing a confident child, and he has a good role model in my father and me and my mother while she was alive. And it was just fantastic to see that there was that perpetuating of the very positive experience.
Say tomorrow, because you also lead teams. Say tomorrow, if one of your team members is walks up to you and says that this is how they feel underappreciated, irrespective, they could be of any gender, anywhere. If they say that they feel underappreciated, or they feel that they missed out on this particular opportunity because of their gender, how would you take like how would you navigate that conversation?
So I would take the opportunity to coach them a little bit and say, well, first of all, listen very carefully to why they feel that way, unpack it a little bit with them, and encourage them to speak up. I come across, I think, now as someone who's not afraid to say what they think. I used to be afraid to say what I think. Even though I came up in this very open environment where there was no taboos at home, I had anxiety talking to people who supervised me through the majority of my legal career because I was afraid that if I said something, I'd get fired. Not because I was a woman, but because I was just afraid. And it was a silly thing to be afraid. And my father would say to me at the dinner table, "Why are you afraid to say something? That's your boss. You should talk to them. Just talk to them like a human, like you talk to me." And I admit I tried a few times and I chickened out. But when I started in this role, I don't know what it was, whether it was because I had grown into myself quite significantly and I'd gotten over a great deal of immaturity that let the fear drop away. Like I had nothing to lose. I knew what my skill set was. I was confident in my own being. I started saying what I thought. And you know what? It's paid off in spades. I wish I had done it earlier. The message here is don't be afraid. Talk to someone. Talk to someone who can be your cheerleader. Talk to someone who can support you. And you'll find things move without even trying too hard. You will find somebody to support you.
Who has been your cheerleader? We know at home, but in Infosys, say, who has been your cheerleader?
So I have to say my manager and my one removed manager and the local country head, they've been my cheerleaders, and my team have been my cheerleaders. I've had wonderful support from my team. I work with wonderful people every day. I'm very fortunate.
So, other than these cheerleaders and lovely team and people you're working with, what is that other thing that, if I'll ask you, you love about your job? Like you absolutely, absolutely love.
I have to say I'm a complete contracts nerd. I love contracts. I like reading them. I like negotiating them. I like the law, and that's what gives me a buzz every day. So the reality is I really do love what I do. A lot of people pay lip service to it. You know, most jobs are 5% inspiration, 95% perspiration. Believe me, today in Sydney is a very hot, humid day, and I am perspiring even though I'm sitting directly under my air conditioning. But my job gives me so much energy because I like what I do. And I like the business people I work with. I find the subject matter absolutely fascinating. Technology contracts and digital transformation and outsourcing and doing people deals and things like that. The structure of the deal, how to move one party from here to there, getting through that process, that actually floats my boat. Sounds weird, right? But that's what I like.
I read on your LinkedIn again that you've been to India. So do you have any memories from your first visit, and probably how was
So
it like?
first of all, the experience of going to India and being on the Infosys campus, our GC mentioned it yesterday. You know, it's a spectacular experience, she said. For me, it was mind-blowing. And I was warned that it was mind-blowing. Before I took my first trip, I contacted a university friend of mine who happened to work at the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade here in Australia and who was a diplomat. He was, at the time, I think he was the acting secretary to Jordan. And he gave his background is Sri Lankan. And I said, look, please impart your knowledge. I want to know more about the cultural things to expect. What am I going to expect going to India? And he said, first of all, Rachel, India is the most open, welcoming, pantheistic. It's the only pantheistic nation in the world where everyone is accepted. Every race, every creed, every color. It doesn't matter who you are, what you are. You know, you will find acceptance there. Let it flow through you. You will see poverty. You'll smell things that you don't want to smell. You know, just look past it, smell past it, understand that smell is going to be in your nose and on your clothes for weeks after you come home. Your ears will be ringing from the constant honking of the horns. You know, he told me all of this to expect. And I stepped off the plane. First of all, I nearly melted in Bangalore because it was so hot, 2:00 in the morning, and it was humid, boiling hot. And I stood in the line to pass through immigration, and that took 3/4 of an hour. It was fine, not unexpected. And then I got outside, and there was someone waiting to take me to the Infosys campus. And they were so lovely. He had water for me in the car. I fell asleep in the back of the car, which I was told not to do. I went through the gates, and then it was like walking into another world. People were so welcoming, so inviting. And my then team member, we were a very small team of 2 at that point, and I'd been with Infosys for a year and a half. She came to meet me the next day, and we went shopping, we went and ate food, and I love Indian food. But this was just a different level of Indian food. It was such a wonderful experience.
What kind of an impact are you hoping to create with your work? And impact, when I say impact, I mean impact on yourself, impact on your team, your ecosystem at large, personal, profession.
I want excellent outcomes. I want to pursue excellence. I want to be highly organized. I want to be recognized for running a well-oiled machine in my team. So that's the kind of impact I want to have. I want to be remembered as a significant contributor and a significant teacher and a positive influence by the legal team in and of itself and by the Infosys business. That's very critical to me.
Thank you. Thank you for all these lovely insights and experiences that you shared with us. Like you said, one has to be fearless, open, and pursue excellence. Yeah. Thank
Absolutely. Absolutely, Vanika. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, Rachel. I'm sure that everyone who's listening to this interview would have enjoyed, like thoroughly enjoyed, and would have picked up some very great learnings. Thank you, everyone who tuned in today. And we have more such interviews lined up in this series. So please stay tuned. And thank you for joining.